great. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for spending time with us here at Ignite and for this session today. We're going to be talking about how we're applying generative AI in employee help desk experiences. I'll be joined on stage shortly by Phil and Natasha, but for now, let's get started. Generative AI is getting applied in employee help desk in 3 domains. Self-service, you can think of that traditionally as the chatbots and IVRs that we're all accustomed to. We're applying the agent technology that you've heard about this week in the self-service domain. I'll show what that looks like. For assisted service, when an employee reaches a service rep, here we're applying Copilot to make sure that that service rep has the best of all possible tools at their disposal. And finally, the first 2 domains would be useless if we didn't have great automation tools to help with low-code and no-code configuration, enabling quick iteration and deployment. All 3 together is the goal for our solution set. Let's look a little bit closer at the typical help desk. So we've all had this experience as employees. We've got some issue that we want to reach out to the help desk for. A ticket gets created. Maybe an update comes in through email. We're checking on the status of that ticket. Maybe we have a phone number for the help desk. We're calling that phone number. We're reaching a help desk service rep. Maybe once a ticket is created, the service rep is reaching out through Teams. We'll get a ping from Teams. Trying to figure out how all this works together can be very frustrating for both employees as well as for the help desk. The employees are trying to understand which of the channels do I use for which purpose, how does the communications all fit together. The help desk is trying to triage all the different lines of communication that they have, try to resolve the issues. So eventually, employee dissatisfaction, the business gets called in. They want to know what's going on. We want to get our employees super productive. How can you help? IT might have started with the initial implementation, so maybe they get called in. And now with generative AI on the scene, all of a sudden, the question is, what is the strategy for attacking this problem? Making it even more difficult, each of these channels, the systems operate in isolation. So we know when we're in Teams, we've got this history of chat. We know there's a Copilot there. The ticketing system, that's typically locked up into a ServiceNow or some other third party or Microsoft CRM. The voice calls, if you're doing transcription at all, great, but where are those being stored? Most of the time, the sentiment, the signals, the conversation, all of this is lost. This was the exact problem space that we were attempting to resolve with Dynamics 365 Contact Center. You can get all of this from Microsoft. So you can get your first-party telephony from us, built on the same infrastructure as Teams. You can get your digital channels, your social channels. We're bringing this together with full integration with the agent capability, as well as with the Copilot capability for the service rep. The beauty of all of this is the data exhaust from all of these conversations. Rather than putting effort into doing the integration so that the generative AI can reason over it, that's all coming into a single package so that we can run generative AI over top of that, and the system gets smarter based on all of those signals. To show this in a little bit more of a real context, I'm going to use a customer that we've been working with closely, Virgin Money. One of the things that we were really excited to work with Virgin Money on is they said, hey, across the whole firm, we're seeing different pockets of activity on generative AI. Can we use the IT help desk as a place to really push the envelope in terms of how far we can push generative AI into both the self-service, the assisted service, and take advantage of some of these automation tools? Let's take a look at how this works. So here I am, just like we've all experienced, landing on an intranet page. There's options to create a help desk ticket. There might be a chat here. There might be resources that they want me to look through. But if I have the option, what I want to do is I'm going to just come into the live chat and have a conversation. So thanks for contacting the Virgin Money help desk. How can I help you? We're going to use a scenario, broken keyboard. So my keyboard isn't working well. We would expect that this chatbot is going to go look out to the knowledge sources, maybe some Q&A pairs. In the world of agents, where that's powering this live chat, now it's able to take that large language model and clean up the language so that it's actually going to have a natural feel to the language that it comes back with. I can see that it's come up with a pretty good response, some troubleshooting steps, and some next steps for me. Let's see the way that that was actually built and configured. I'm going to come here into the agent that I have configured for the Virgin Money Help Desk, into my Design Canvas Copilot Studio. I'm going to look at the knowledge that I have wired up first. So this is a website, a SharePoint site. I've got some Word docs here. This is an example of what one of those Word docs look like. It's just a knowledge base article that they would use for the help desk, now piped into this agent. I can add new knowledge to this, so it's all point and click, drag and drop. You can see how easy it is to do that. I also have a set of preview features here, so we can use some of those third parties. We can use Salesforce, ServiceNow, Zendesk to extend the knowledge. And we have a roadmap for a set that are coming soon. So things like Confluence, things like Jira, Oracle, SAP. But for today, what I really want to focus on is the things that we have in GA right now. Make sure that you're using the capabilities, you have a sense of how this works in production right now for help desks around the world. Awesome. So here I am now in my test environment. I've got that running. I'm going to now show the way that I have the topics configured. So in an old chatbot, what you would do is you would have a whole bunch of Q&A pairs. You would have a whole bunch of topics defined. You would have this deep hierarchy that someone has to navigate. Here, we've flattened all that by just having a couple topics. And the main topic that I'm going to use is right here. This one is designed for if there is no intent that's known at all. So that's right here. If there's no intent detected, it's able to then flow into this create generative answers here. Let's give it a try. So the same question. I have a broken keyboard. Give that a shot. And it's, as you would expect, doing this round trip to go look up the generative answers. Now, the thing that I really like about this design surface is I can see what it's doing as I test it. So these dark blue lines are showing me that it's come through this generative answers node. It's come to this condition node. It says the answer's not blank, so I'm going to actually be able to respond with something. Great. But I do see that the answer that it came back with is kind of long and verbose. And so if I'm trying to help someone get to an answer quick, I really want to take advantage of that large language model to consolidate that down. The other thing that I notice is here on step 3, it's saying to contact the help desk. Now, it's doing that because that's what the knowledge base article said, but that's only painful because I thought I was talking to the help desk, so why is it telling me to contact the help desk? I could go out to all those knowledge articles and do the update across all of them. But what I really want to do is I want to take advantage of the capabilities that are right inside of the generative answers node to try to address this. So here I am going into the details. You can see that I have those Word docs mapped here. But if I scroll down, there is an option to customize my prompt. So let's try a prompt that I was rapidly iterating on. Because I'm able to test this live, I was able to come up with a prompt that really helped me. So here's my prompt. Dear agent, 2 rules you must comply with. 1, do not use more than 30 words in your answer, so that's going to help to shrink it down. 2, never tell anyone to contact the help desk because you are the help desk. Anytime you want to tell someone to contact the help desk, instead tell them to request to speak with a service representative. Awesome. So let's go ahead and save that. We'll refresh our test canvas here. And let's give it another try. Same problem. My keyboard is broken. It's going to do my round trip here. And as expected, it's now kept a much shorter answer. So it's respected the prompt that I gave it. Short answer, succinct. And rather than saying contact the help desk, it's now saying request to speak with a service representative. Awesome. All right. Now, that is all when I want to get the self-help working, right? Self-service. What happens when I want to make sure that I can escalate when the self-service hits its limit? I want to escalate. So here, I'm going to use a different topic to show how I have that configured. This is the escalate topic. And for those who may have called your share of service lines, you may be familiar with the act of trying to figure out what is the trigger phrase in order to get a person. So as expected, we got a long list. Can I have an agent? We've all yelled these things into the phone before. What I've done is I have tried to address my scenario right now. I'm on business travel. And if I'm on business travel, I've got a hardware problem. I may not have time to deal with the self-help. I may want to just talk to a person and see how I can take care of this really quickly. All right. So we've got that thing configured. Now let's go back into the agent through live chat, and let's give this a try. So you know where we're going to escalate to. This is the contact center workspace here. This is where the service reps are going to work in their day-to-day job, and they're going to triage tickets here. So let's come in. Is there anything else I can help you with? I am on business travel. And indeed, trigger phrase initiated. It's going to forward that now to the service rep. As a service rep, I get this inbound notification. I'm going to accept that. And what you'll see is it's going to populate the conversation that happened so far with the agent. And I get the entire transcript of the conversation that happened with the agent up until that point. So now I know exactly where they were. There's nothing worse than having that conversation with the agent. You finally reach a person and you get that dreaded question, how can I help you today? Here, we've short-circuited that by telling them exactly everything that happened. And in fact, if I want to jumpstart myself even faster, I can use this Copilot summary to get the summary. Great that I have that summary of the current conversation. I also see the history of recent conversations with this employee. I could look through that, or I could leverage this Copilot highlights. So it tells me all of the history. It gives me a short version of that. So now I know not only the context of the current conversation, but the context of their recent conversations. Finally, I have this ask a question capability. And here, we already are suggesting what to ask. So it's context aware. What steps should the customer follow to request a keyboard replacement? That's going to populate the prompting here, which is going to jumpstart my ability to start resolving this problem for the employee. So now as the support rep, what I can do is I get this suggested response from Copilot, and now I might also want to kind of shrink down the information. I might want to make some edits here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just send this directly to the employee. They can see it here. You can see on the live chat now that response just piped right in. So it starts to be a really seamless experience in talking from the self-service agent to the assisted service channel. Fantastic. Just to show you a couple features that you would expect on a solution like this from Microsoft. So we do have compliance baked in. So if the employee did something like tried to put in some personally identifiable information, a social security number, a social insurance number, a credit card, we are going to mask that here. And then back in the contact center workspace, we're going to make sure that that doesn't make it into the transcript either. Another capability that's just a config is to turn on translations. So my preferred language is English. I might have an employee where they have a different preferred language. So let's give some Spanish a try here. Hola, ¿cómo estás? And back here on Contact Center Workspace, you can see the translation coming through. When I reply back, I am fine, thank you for asking. It's going to do that translation, and we've really focused on the employee experience, so the employee doesn't see that translation. The employee's just seeing the conversation back in their preferred language. One more for the round trip here. Bonjour. Testing my high school level knowledge of these languages. And here we're seeing, gotta send it, back on the contact center workspace, it's now live detected the fact that I was speaking Spanish here. It's translated English to Spanish, Spanish to English, and now it's switched over to French. Fantastic. So we've seen this builder experience. We've seen how that comes together with self-service, how it comes together with assisted service. But I mentioned that we have the ability to bring together multiple channels. So live chat is fantastic, but ideally I want to meet my employees where they are. So if your employees use Teams, you want to leverage the Teams channel. If they use something like WhatsApp, you want to leverage that channel. I'm going to use Teams as my example here. So let's end this conversation, and I'm going to move over to Teams. This is the full Teams client to give you some context. And just like I am a colleague, here what I'm going to do is I am the Virgin Money Help Desk. Virgin Money Help Desk, here I am. I'm going to address the agent with a quick hello. Now, the really nice thing about this is I've built this agent in one place. I've configured it. I've wired it up to knowledge, set the guardrails that I want it to respect, and independent of the channel, it's behaving the same way. So that way, the employee, when they're interacting, doesn't feel like they're getting different interactions depending on what channel they're operating in. So just to complete this, how can I help you? I have a broken keyboard. It's using the exact same behavior, giving me the exact same signals that it's doing work. It's respected the fact that I want a short response back. It's coming back with request to speak with a service representative. Awesome. To finalize this, I'm on business travel. Let me connect with a service desk representative. Coming back here. Now I get the consistent agent experience as well. So the service rep, they're receiving this inbound notification. It's going to add it to the inbox. So now I get the same experience as the help desk rep. I get that full history of the conversation. I get the conversation summary. I get the ask a question, context aware. And now you start to appreciate having all of this conversations consolidated into a single interface where I've got Copilot summarizing the highlights in addition to the conversation at hand. Great. So you get a sense of how all of this works together. Of course, everyone's probably noticed at this point, I'm talking a lot about my broken keyboard, but I seem to be typing just fine. So to round out the experience, what would I do if I'm here on business travel, my keyboard's not working? I'd probably want to call the help desk at that point. So that's what I'm going to do next. To show you the way that that's configured, I'm going to come back into Copilot Studio. What I want to show you is I have this ability inside of my topics to differentiate just specific nodes for the modality. So here, my default is this text-based response, which is, thanks for calling the Virgin Money Help Desk. But I also can do a variation on just this node to say, thanks for calling the Virgin Money Help Desk. You can see this dark blue has already triggered this live in the debugger. So I can test this. If I do my refresh, you can see, thanks for contacting the Virgin Money Help Desk. If I now flip over to speech, it's done the switch live, and now it knows, thanks for calling. All of that's super exciting. Let's see what it sounds like. Check, check.
Thanks for calling the Virgin Money Help Desk. How can I help you?
My keyboard is broken?
To request a replacement keyboard, confirm the issue, gather necessary information like the model and asset tag, and request to speak with a service representative. Is there anything else I can help you with?
I'm on business travel.
Let me connect you with a help desk service representative for that. Please stand by.
All right, so now we have shown digital. We're switching to voice. I've got the inbound coming in. I'm going to accept that as the service rep. I get these capabilities where I've got sentiment. Because I've got the transcription on the voice, it's able to pick up on what that sentiment is. I have the ability to come in here and do the summarize capability. So now, even on the voice, I get quickly up to speed. I've got my highlights here from the past conversations. It's able to figure out, based on the context of the conversation, what steps can a customer take for a broken keyboard. Fantastic. Get that started. So you start to see how I've unified the experience from the digital channels to a voice agent across self-service and assisted service with all these fantastic low-code tools. I've focused on a couple areas of our contact center solution, but this is indeed a complete contact center. So we also have things like unified routing, define your routing rules in one place, respect those independent of channel. We've got ACD, we've got supervisor. All of that makes it a complete solution, but you'll notice that everything I didn't create any cases. That's because we've designed Contact Center to run completely headless, independent of a CRM. You get the case integration once you connect it to our CRM or a third-party CRM. We have all of that built in, which makes it composable. It's complete in that you can get all of these capabilities, but you do not need to adopt it all at once. You can adopt just the pieces you want. You can adopt just the self-service first. You can adopt just our voice. You can adopt just our digital. You can get all these capabilities and the flexibility that they bring. I showed the immersive experience, but you can even use the interface of your preferred ticketing system. So what we have is these embedded controls down there on the bottom left. It's a compressed version of everything that I just showed. So this gives you sentiment controls. This gives you transcript. This gives you conversation summary. It gives you ask a question. But you can take these compressed controls and you can put them in the interface of your choice. This set of features is ready for scale. It's built for worldwide presence. Available in all of the markets that Microsoft operates in. That's 240 countries and regions. I showed a couple languages, but it has support for up to 48 different languages. We have 42 systems integrators ramped up on this, ready to help our customers get this deployed, get this optimized. So we are ready for prime time, and we're really looking forward to see what you do with the product. Great. So I've shown the designer, I've shown the experience, shown it hands-on. This is the solution that Microsoft is using not only internally, but also for our end customers. So we support everything from quantum computing in Azure to Xbox. Billing issues, technical issues, Dynamics 365 powers all of that. And we are also using this inside of our own help desk. So in order to explain how this is getting deployed and some of the lessons learned, I'm going to invite up Natasha and Phil to help explain how our own HR help desk is implementing this and some of the things that they've learned. Natasha, Phil?
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Alan.
Gracias. Merci.
How many more?
We can keep going. We can keep going
Keep
for a
going.
while, yeah.
Arigato. Anyhow, I actually see some familiar faces here, so thank you all for joining us here. I'm also happy that Phil is here with me.
Thank you, Natasha.
Because Phil is the General Manager of HR Services at Microsoft. I work very closely with Phil and his team because my team builds the Copilot experiences that you saw earlier in Dynamics 365. So, welcome.
Thank you. Good to see you.
One thing that I feel like every time I talk to Phil, I learn something really new, exciting, interesting. So I'm hoping you're going to get that experience today as well. You're going to learn some useful insights that you can bring back. So shall we get started?
Let's do it.
First question. Set some context, maybe. Just maybe tell everyone more about, like a little bit about your team. How many employees do you serve? And then also the employee help desk scenario, like how do you run that?
Sure, let's size and scale it up a little bit. So Microsoft is currently 220,000 employees worldwide. That stretches across about 100 countries we operate in. And our team from a HR service desk, if you want to think about it that way, we support a variety of questions from employees. We get about 1 million questions a year, so that nets out to about 4,000 per business day that we get to support. We do that across a variety of teams within the HR function, and employees are asking us questions from the entirety of the employee life cycle. They can be from the simple side, which is questions about different benefit programs and information they need to get about that item. Can be something about our internal library and seeking a resource to help them learn a little bit more as part of our Learn It All culture. It can also range in the complex, where we need highly specialized items that come through. So an immigration scenario that might come in for us, it could be quite complex through transfers, or even compliance items that we need to address, or HR privacy items. And employees will ask us those questions through different modalities, just like Alan showed, as we get all of the above, I suppose. Everything from a modern chatbot, that service that we have. We could do even through a web interface, just on our internet portal. Good old tried and tested email, we get a lot of still today at Microsoft, being the company of Outlook. And we also have phone line in select markets, in particular in the US, so we do high volume within phone as well through that. And we structure the team across a series of specializations, if you think about it that way. So a series of service lines which we operate within. And we do that distributed. We have about 1,400 HR professionals that would be supporting through Dynamics 365 as we have them in there. And those individuals could be in a couple different modalities. One would be co-located, centralized service center, like your classic model that you might imagine, or even a distributed model where we need subject matter expertise and or language capabilities on the ground.
That's a lot of interactions.
Yep.
Crazy. But anyhow, so I think in terms of employee help desk expectations these days, I feel like that seems to have changed over the past years, right? Like I, for one, I used to just create a ticket, wait forever. I'm very patient. Just wait forever for something to happen. These days, I feel like, with new technology, with like ease of access to information, people don't want to wait. We want it like right away, right? So how does your team handle that? Maybe first thing, what's your perspective? Like what kind of evolution have you seen? Yeah. And then maybe how does your team actually react or respond to that?
Yeah, you captured it really well. I mean, one of the things that we've seen is let's take it from a HR perspective, is the employee-employer relationship is evolving, of course. And in a more modern way, obviously, employees are looking for faster and faster, more consumer-like experiences in the workplace itself. So we move beyond just having competitive salaries and benefits as a way to retain employees, and you need to have different offerings, et cetera. So let's take it from a help desk perspective for a minute. What that means is that speed is king, really, for us.
Yeah.
We have steadily improved our speed of response over the years, yet it's still the number one item that we get feedback on, is how do we move faster and faster for it. And so, you operate in that dimension, yet at the same time, at least from a HR context, or even Alan gave the experience of traveling on business and wanting to talk to somebody, there is the duality of the moment where you need a more high-touch human experience. So in a way, what we're seeing is the emergence of both, is more rapid, immediate response needs that we solve through technology.
Yeah.
And then the higher touch elements for us, which get more and more complicated over time in trying to address that from a customer service need. And internally from a HR perspective, as a cost center, that may not be where you put how you think about customer service in quite the same way in the past. So you need HR professionalism matched with customer service is a greater need. So we're investing in capabilities, hiring the right new capabilities within those teams as well. So that's how we're addressing it.
It is indeed true that speed's important, the overall experience is important, right? Because I think nowadays it doesn't really matter if you're asking for help or getting support at work, or you just bought something, a product or service, and you want support there. You always want that great support experience via multiple channels. So I know that your team has been using Dynamics 365 for over a decade.
Yeah.
So what's that experience been, and what do you find compelling about that platform?
The journey for us has coincided really well. The timing was essentially our move into a HR shared services at scale support model over a decade ago. At the time, just contextually, at the time, Microsoft was only about 90,000 employees across the world. Again, we're 220,000 now. So that era in the last decade, we've grown substantially. Some of it's through acquisitions that we've done, or organic growth in a variety of markets as well. And the geographic mix of that changed quite significantly at the same time. So in a way, it was a bit serendipitous for us to adopt the solution because it allowed us to scale rapidly through that. And that's just kind of an organic growth. But I'd also say that it's given us the opportunity to transform a bit faster our HR processes, which were very distributed and disparate as we grew as a company, 50 years as a company this year. So if I take those two dimensions, let me give you a couple examples of just the speed and the scale itself during the pandemic. It allowed us to set up a contact tracing within a week for 100 countries worldwide by having a more centralized way to manage our service desk for HR.
Right.
And then if you think on the innovation side of where we're continuing to drive process improvements and where my team's regularly innovating and creating new ideas is the extensibility with the Power Platform. So we can take business processes and start to interlink them into case creation and manage those together for us to be able to manage, let's say, a hire process where we might link that into Dynamics 365 with the Power Platform as well. So that scalability and the extensibility has been really important for us as we continue to drive an improved HR shared services model. And then naturally in the last year, setting us up with Copilot and a lot of the features that we went through, has been quite phenomenal.
I'm always happy when your team uses Copilot, selfish reasons. But anyhow, so Copilot, do you have any metrics or results that you can share with the audience here? So in terms of maybe just usage or just impact, maybe?
Yeah. So I mentioned, so we set ourselves up for the use of Copilot. So we obviously get a little bit of a benefit of insider access, and so my team has been using Copilot within Dynamics 365 for about a year now, where we've had a lot of the highlights and the summary features Alan showed previously, the Ask a Question, which is querying on our HR knowledge base directly within Dynamics 365, and the Write a Response or the Write an Email to help us move a bit faster. And during that year, we've learned a lot. We've been building habits, learning about content and how do we drive utilization of it. So again, I think it's more about habit building. It's an important point of it is how do we switch those behaviors from where we would have a tacit versus implicit knowledge, and how do we think about marrying that two up. But what we're noticing is immediately as you see those individuals that have built that habit, we're seeing speed improve. We talked about before, speed matters, quality also matters. So we're balancing getting our quality also improving, but speeding up at the same way. And one of our internal studies that we did, we had a 22% faster response to employees utilizing the Copilot features for us. So it's been quite helpful from a satisfaction of the service representative and for the customer outcomes that we're trying to seek at that point in time. And since then, we've also added a couple more things. As the Copilot features roll out, we're adding the extensibility into Outlook and to be able to query on the same as we write responses for generative response to employees for their questions or their needs. And more recently, as we're getting ready to deploy, and Satya and Charles Lamanna presented earlier in the week, the employee self-service.
That's exciting.
Yeah, Copilot in Microsoft 365, which will be fantastic for us. But even our front end of the funnel, where we've seen a lot of benefits in Copilot Studio, which we have today, is it responds to about 15% of all of our case volume, which, again, if you imagine that growth that we've had, we couldn't have managed quite that same growth if we didn't have the benefit of Copilot Studio helping address on the front of the funnel as well. So both from the representative side and on the employee side as we're seeing those Copilot benefits.
That makes sense. When I think Copilot, a lot of times I think knowledge as well, because to me they kind of go hand in hand, right? When you have great knowledge, you tend to have better Copilot experience. And then now with Gen AI, you also get help creating knowledge articles more easily and quickly. So I want to know how your team uses and manages your knowledge assets. And also, like, do you see Copilot enhancing that knowledge management experience, for example, in terms of efficiency or just access for your employees?
Yeah, I mean, you said it really well. I mean, the knowledge base is the key asset for Copilot to operate, so they do go hand in hand for us. Historically, we had disparate knowledge sitting in multiple places. I don't think that's probably that uncommon in other, service or support center environments, is having different solutions or ways of working for people to do. From the HR context, we also used to have layers to that content as well, based on the persona of who we were responding to. For example, how we might respond to an employee or a dependent would be very different than how we might provide additional information if you were a manager or a supervisor in that context. Even additional layers to that if you're a HR professional supporting a manager who's supporting an employee. It goes on and on, you can imagine. And so having content which would have been in duplicate in multiple places was quite a burden for us to manage. And so leveraging Copilot to help rationalize that and to contextualize that, we're actually finding our ability to streamline content as well. And I think I'll go back to the habit building is where we're seeing our content is improving over the years, where we might not have even known where it all was, is we actually have a more consolidated view to that. And so we're developing the habit of learning that virtuous circle between learning, developing content, and then fueling additional Copilot solutions and benefits to either the Surface representative or the employee. So you said it really well. Content is where we're now doubling down at this point.
Love it. So maybe let's switch gears a little. Budget constraints. That's quite common across industry these days, right? How do service organizations think about that? Like, for example, what are some of the primary concerns when you look at the ITSM employee help desk scenarios, or just what we talked about earlier as expectation changes, how we're responding to that?
Yeah, I mean, in HR, we're a cost center, so we're cost sensitive, maybe more than if we were a commercial endeavor that might have it that way. We obviously look at cost management and savings and opportunities that we have with it, but what I'll offer is this, and even when I talk to other customers about it, there's choices that you can take with it. Yeah. Right now, as I mentioned before, we're trying to balance how do we improve the speed, so leveraging benefits that we gain from Copilot solutions, that speed that we're gaining before, the 22% that I previously mentioned, is give that back into the employee experience. How do we speed that up for them? Yeah. And then the other is how do we also think about increasing the quality dimension that sits there as well. Now, other organizations might take different choices of how they want to redeploy that. The only other thing, I'll go back to the content piece, is I've even said to my supervisor, I said, hey, we have to reinvest some back into content, and we're finding a different dimension. And all of it goes back to, if you think about it's our company mission statement, is how do we enable every person, every organization on the planet to do more, is we're also freeing up those individuals to do more. We're spending more time getting, whether it's content or these are the same individuals, it might also be helping us write the parameters for different solutions that we're going to look at from the agentic framework of other Copilot solutions in the future. So getting more out of that versus just the help all the time.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I know that cost savings is
Yep.
not the only important thing, but I am curious, how does your team evaluate and track operational savings?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure anybody here that's either managing or used to a service desk or a help desk, whatever it might be, we manage a pretty tight cost per. We understand what it costs us to manage that and how do we evaluate that, and that's across a broader ecosystem of how do we support employees in our scenario from a HR service desk this way. The other thing we'd offer is that what we kind of also look at is how do we continue to add additional services to it. So again, there's the more question that can come into that very quickly for you. It's not just about, for us in Microsoft HR, it's not just about driving costs down, it's about how do we do something with it and continue to add value-added services to the employee base.
Awesome. That was the last question. So thank you so much. I just want to tell you, the work that your team's been doing really helps us.
Thank you.
For one, I know that I'm getting better answers. I have more channels where I can get the answers in a more authentic manner. So I just want to thank you for that. And also thank you for being here.
Kudos to my
Thank you to the team.
So
yes. So that is, but one thing here, I know that everyone's probably really tired after a whole week, and it's kind of late. So we want to give you some time to rest. But if you want to have a conversation with us, if you want to just chat, share your scenarios, please come by. We're going to stick around here for a little longer. We also have a booth or Meet Your Expert station up there between Zone 2 and Zone 6. It's the business applications area. Come by, talk to us, because we would love to hear your scenarios and see how we can help you. But thank you again, and we're going to bring Ellen back to wrap up.
Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Natasha, Phil. Awesome. So it really is great to hear how these solutions are being implemented by our own internal help desks. I hope you learned something, got to see the product in action. Just in closing, if you want to try this out yourself, we've got trials available. Go to the QR code, kick the tires on it. If you want to learn more, recording of a great session yesterday, BRK 160. That one is focused on the Copilot and agents inside of Dynamics 365. And then finally, there's a session tomorrow, more on the employee experience with these AI agents, BRK 283. As Natasha mentioned, go deep, experience the demos, and talk to our experts at the expert meetups. Thank you all for your time. Really appreciate it. And tell us how we did. Thank you.